Hi everyone, welcome back to AFTV. We've got a new video today looking at our Player of the Month for November. I think this is an interesting discussion because we want to be doing a bit more regularly. We want to be looking back at the month's performances, the month's standout individuals and giving them credit for their performances. But I think what is interesting about this one is when we were sort of putting together, discussing in the office, you know, who has been our Player of the Month, I realised that Watford's our first game in November. Thank you very much for the international break for that. So it means we've only got 3 games to look at. Obviously the Watford win, the 4-0 defeat at Liverpool, which obviously does make it a little bit tougher for some of the players we're going to mention. But also the 2-0 win against Newcastle at home, and those are the only 3. So trust me, I wanted to mention people like Lacazette, only to realise that his best performances came against Villa, Palace's appearance, the Leicester game as well, all in October. So hey, time flies. But we are here to discuss the November Player of the Month award, and I'm going to start with some honourable mentions because I think there are a few players that I don't know if anyone has massively stood out in November. I think there have been, across the board, some good performances, even despite that 4-0 defeat. But I'm going to get a couple of honourable mentions in there. Starting with Takahiro Tomiyasu. Now, struggled against Liverpool at Anfield. I think Mane and Tsimikas really gave him a tough game, but obviously showed a different side to his game against Newcastle, showed a more progressive side, a lovely ball over the top for that Martinelli goal, and we actually saw something similar against Watford, that ability to find the space and beyond and pick out the right winger. It's not actually the first time that Martinelli movement has been picked up by Tomiyasu, and he started to show different elements going forward. Looked very good in that game against Newcastle and Watford, but struggled against Liverpool, so he's only an honourable mention for me, as is Ben White, who I think with every game is looking more and more just an absolute force at the back, the kind of player who weirdly can conduct a game from centre-back. He's got that ability on the ball. When the space opens up, he drives into it. He's showing a lot of quality, but he's doing the defensive work brilliantly as well. Again, only an honourable mention because I do think despite a decent start at Anfield, once that second goal comes in, obviously the Tavares mistake and Ben White dives in front of the ball, we then can see the second. I just think he struggled for a lot of the rest of that game, that the back four kind of collapsed. But hey, maybe that's a criticism for one of the players I'm going to mention later in my 5 mentions. But the important thing is, no matter who I mention, get into the comment section below and you can let us know who your Player of the Month is. So yes, the honourable mentions were Ben White and Tomiyasu, but let's start with, for me, my favourite at least for Player of the Month, and that is Aaron Ramsdale. What's there to say? A clean sheet against Watford, a clean sheet against Newcastle, some big saves in those games as well, especially in games where Arsenal have had a lot of the ball and he's having to maintain concentration. He's having to make sure he does his job despite Arsenal maybe not finding the goal as early as he wants in the game. Then the opposition get a little bit of confidence and maybe they can sense or smell that there's an opportunity for them to nick a goal. But Aaron Ramsdale's been an absolute rock. And even despite conceding 4 goals at Anfield, I know, crazy, you're thinking, how could you get man of the match? Well, I say man of the match, he did for Arsenal anyway. How could you get Player of the Month for conceding 4 goals at Anfield just a week ago? But the reality is, it would have been 7 or 8 if it weren't for Ramsdale. He made some extraordinary saves in that game. So I do think Aaron Ramsdale is absolutely in the run for Player of the Month. I think you guys will let me know in the comment section, but I think he's been absolutely terrific, and yeah, well worth mentioning in that top 5 for me. I think he's been absolutely terrific. Let's go into my other shout. A little bit controversial, and that is Nuno Tavares. Again, a lot of his best performances for Arsenal, I think Newcastle's probably his best one. He was good against Watford. And then people are probably thinking about the Villa game and the Leicester game, which were in October. I want to say something a little bit controversial here. Against Liverpool, I don't think he played that badly. The error is obviously costly, and I know I've just kind of marked down Ben White for that, and I appreciate that. So I don't know, maybe I've got this one wrong, but I just think Tavares has added another element to our game, and against Newcastle, he always looked the one that was going to make something happen. And I think when we're talking about Players of the Month, we've got to be looking at the players who made a real difference and picked up those key points. And I think it's fair to say that Tavares was a big part of that against Newcastle. I think he was so crucial to what we were doing going forward. I think he's been so crucial towards us adding a different dimension and unpredictability when we go down that side. Now, this isn't to say that he should be playing ahead of Kieran Tierney. We know Kieran Tierney can be superb. But I've really enjoyed what Tavares has brought to that role. And for a lot of that game at Anfield, I thought dealt with the physical battle against Salah, dealt with his pace and trickery actually very well. unfortunately, when he does do the defensive work well, it's that loose ball into midfield that ultimately costs us. So I'm not going to mark Tavares down too much for that. And also, I've got to big him up for his response to what happened at Anfield, and then coming out and performing like that against Newcastle. I know who the opposition are. I know they're rooted at the very bottom of the table, but I've got to give him credit. And for me, he is one of our players of the month. So yeah, I include him in there. Well done, Tavares, on the response from Liverpool, and let us know in the comment section whether he is your player of the month. As I move on to now, Gabriel, our Brazilian monster at the back. This guy's an absolute unit, and what I love about Gabriel is he makes defending look easy. I can't believe we've lost 4-0 to Liverpool, and I've got a goalkeeper, a left back, and a centre back in my sort of, you know, mentions for player of the month. But the reason I've done it is, you look at Gabriel again, I don't really think anything at Anfield was his fault. I think he dealt with his one-on-one duels with Salah very, very well. He dealt with where he had to rise to the occasion in those individual moments. I felt he did. But you add to that clean sheets against Watford and Newcastle, where again, you know, Watford put 4 past United, then scored 2 against Leicester. You know, they do have a bit of firepower about them, and I felt Gabriel just dealt with them very, very easily and made the game look very easy, as he did against Newcastle. I think he's becoming a bit of a leader at the back, and when the club need to just dig in a little bit, he is the player who's standing up to that probably more than any, and I'm really enjoying watching him. I think on current form, we've got one of the best centre-backs in the league. I really believe that. I think he is in top form, and yeah, again, maybe he's up there with Ramsdale for player of the month. I mean, they're the two I'm looking at. I've mentioned Tavares as well. But yeah, again, let us know in the comment section. Gabriel, on course for player of the season, maybe. He's looking absolutely terrific. Let's move on to our more attacking players now. 2 more players that get mentioned for this player of the month award. I'm looking at Emile Smith-Rowe, and I know Smith-Rowe's best contributions again came in October. I acknowledge that, and obviously we know the Spurs game as well. But I just feel Smith-Rowe, when he gets that goal against Watford, that first time finish, and he's looking a threat all game that day. I remember he was on top form, and against Newcastle struggled in the first half, but came to life a bit more in the second half, combining with Saka again and Tavares to make things happen. You can see how much of our best attacks flow through him, and he's so crucial. So even without having the goal rate he had just the month before, he's still crucial to what we do. And I think when you are winning us 2 extra points with that goal against Watford, that's massive, and I really think it's massive. I think it's crucial, and he is stepping up where others aren't, where others should be sometimes. So I've got to give props to Emile Smith-Rowe for that, and absolutely is going to make my top 5 for player of the month. And I'm going to round it off now with the player on the opposite wing, and that is Bukayo Saka. Now, yeah, a lot of this comes down to his performance against Newcastle. Again, it's only those 3 games, Watford, Liverpool, Newcastle, we could judge them off. But I felt Bukayo Saka was looking much more of a threat against Watford. He absolutely was tearing Danny Rose apart. I mean, I felt for Danny Rose actually, because Saka was showing a different side to his game, a direct side, a more one-on-one, taking people on, looking like a real old school winger at times. Obviously had his goal disallowed because he was offside against Watford, but after scoring against, who was it for? Against Spurs. I think he might have got a goal for England as well. Started to look a little bit more of a threat in front of guys as we'd seen him do last season. Against Newcastle though, gets his goal. I felt he was the player who, like Smith-Rowe against Watford, Saka dragged us through it against Newcastle. Saka, all the best attacks flowed through him. Especially when it came down to that left to combine with Smith-Rowe, and as I said, we channel everything down the Smith-Rowe side. That dip in the shoulder, the Smith-Rowe header, Aubameyang hits the post, that comes from Saka's great work and trickery. Then in the second half, he's gone one-on-one, he's being double marked, there's 2 men round him, he finds a way to drop the shoulder, come inside, beat them both, get a shot away. Again, showing a side to Saka we've not seen too much. But then he gets the goal, and what a goal it was, and tried to play through injury, unfortunately. Hopefully it's not too serious. But Saka, I think, has been terrific in those 2 home games, but I've got to mention him at Liverpool as well. I felt of all the outfield players, he looked the biggest threat. He looked the one who might do something. He looked like he was causing Van Dijk and Tsimikas a few issues. He tries to get into the box and get on the end of a header. and try and remain a goal threat. And I think in a game where it must have been really tough for Saka, where he might get isolated at times, I felt he did okay at Anfield as well. So yeah, Saka's up there too. I've got to say, as I talk through them, I keep changing my mind, but I'm looking at Ramsdale, I'm looking at Gabriel, I'm looking at Saka. I think they were all superb this month. 2 wins, 1 defeat at Liverpool, but the important thing is the wins and the clean sheets at home. Listen, whatever happens at Anfield can happen. You don't want it to happen, but the important thing is you bounce back, and the players did. And a big part of the credit I'm giving these players is because of the way they bounce back from that, especially Tavares, especially Saka. So yeah, guys, that's it. That's the Player of the Month video. Let us know in the comment section what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And look out for all the content coming out this week ahead of the Man United, starting from today, building up all the way through to Thursday evening, because it is a massive game. We don't need another Anfield. We need a performance where, a bit like last season, we show teams we can come to Old Trafford, we can go to Stamford Bridge, and we can compete. So yeah, it's going to be a massive one. Hopefully those players I've mentioned, or maybe others, are going to come out as potential December Player of the Month candidates, because they'll have played brilliantly throughout this month. So yeah, let's see what happens. Thanks very much, guys. Like and subscribe, as I just mentioned, and see you later on.